So you might be wondering what my medication history is, so you know how much your situation is similar to or different from mine. So I wanted to just take a chance to talk about that in this video and to share with you what what medications I was on for how long, what my taper process was like, all those details, because I know in the crux of the worst part of withdrawal, you feel like my situation's worse than everybody else's. I can't possibly heal. This is just so bad. It's so impossible. Your brain can really latch on to any reason why you might not heal and might be like at the utter brink of your existence and not, survive. But that's actually a symptom. And actually, Angie taught me that from her videos and also from being in her groups. But it really is a symptom of withdrawal, is to think that your situation and your taper and your particular whole situation is somehow the worst possible storm and you can't possibly heal from it. But that is a symptom. It's like an extreme anxiety, almost like a sense of impending doom and disaster, not being able to see your way out of it because you have so little control or influence over your mental state and the symptoms. You feel completely out of control, and you remember being able to make choices in the past, but you can't change those, and so you feel like totally screwed. So my video today is to share with you, you are not screwed, because so many people have had the extreme worst cases and healed. And so just hold on to all that evidence. You have to hold on to that. And yes, the healing process can take time and it can be just so grueling, but the healing is real. And so just know that when you're having that, it is a symptom. It's a symptom. It's an intense anxiety symptom. And so I will share with you my exact, situation, so you can kind of compare the dots with yours. But just know, even if your situation, if you're like, oh my gosh, it's so much worse than hers, even if you think it's worse, know there are people who have way worse and healed. And so just hold on to all of those evidences of healing, because that's evidence for you. Okay, so my situation was I was put on meds, a very, very high dose, in a postpartum depression. And that was at first a low dose, and then with more intervention, I was given a very high dose. Okay, then a year later, tapered off of it. Maybe a year, maybe it was 2. I don't remember, it was a while ago. Tried to taper off of it in like a maybe 2-3 month period with doctor supervision. Had withdrawal symptoms and did not know that it was withdrawal symptoms. I had no idea what withdrawal was. I was told by the doctor that they were the return of my original illness and that I needed to be on meds probably for life. Now, I did not like that for life sentence. But I thought to myself, well, I at least need it for now to stay healthy for my kids, to be able to be daily caring for them and interacting well with them, and not to be totally kaput on the couch and unable to function. So what would have probably been a mild withdrawal, if I would have been told, hey, this is what withdrawal is and your body will heal, probably would have been more of a mild withdrawal turned into, because that information wasn't known. I don't think my doctor has any idea really about withdrawal. Became a long-term dependency. So she was like, you need this, stay on this. And so I just did. I was like, this must be the wisest thing to do for my family and myself. And so I just stayed on. And so I just kicked the can down the road. Now, of course, the longer you're on, the harder it is to come off. Okay. So 10 years, we're talking 10 years, because I ended up having another baby and wanted to stay healthy for that baby and for being a stay-at-home mom and taking good care of her and be present for what everybody needed. And so stayed on. So fast forward to they're older, and that's when I go off. Okay, now, in that time of 10 years, I would have different side effects, naturally, that you have when you're medicated. And I would bring those up to my doctor, and then my doctor would say, well, let's try a different one. And she would do, like, now I know, I didn't know this then, a fast taper, and then cross me over onto a different one. So much has been unknown about what's actually safe and healthy and right about these medications. So much is hidden. But the truth is, like, the more you go off and you go on and you fast taper and you know, go on quickly, like, the more that off, on, the more your body has a harder time adjusting. So it's like has an impact. And so I didn't know all those times it was going off and on and off and on, you know, that it was like having a cumulative effect where my body was going to one day go, no. So I didn't know that. I was just like trusting my doctor. Oh, she says this one now is better. Okay, we'll try that one. And I didn't know that when you switch a med, you know, you go from one to the other, that it can be months later that you have some of the effects of that switch. So I would have like a depression from switching, and I'd be like, why am I depressed? Everything about my life is fine. But I feel so dark, and this feels so bad. And I don't know what else to change in my life to make this better. And so I would go to therapy, and I would try to do all this self-help stuff, and I would think maybe it's my childhood trauma, or, you know, I just try to like do everything I could to be healthy, and the depression would just linger. And so anyway, so I went from Zoloft, 200 milligrams, and then was on that for a while, and then went to Lexapro and was on that for many years, and then I think we added Wellbutrin to help with anxiety. So then I had 2, you know, which is like the poly drugged, which now we know they don't interact very well usually. Like just doing multiple of these SRSRIs or SNRIs is not recommended, and usually they don't interact well. So here I am, I'm on 2 now. And then, so then I guess that was Wellbutrin and Lexapro, and then we switched Wellbutrin to Citalopram. So then I was on Citalopram for years, and then we switched Citalopram to Fluoxetine. That was a recommendation of, you know, at the doctor's. So that was actually a PA, but it was under my doctor. So then I was on Fluoxetine, and then that time I was in a dark time. I felt very depressed, had kind of like withdrawal-like symptoms, but didn't know what was going on until later that year. I had done therapy, I'd done a lot of self-help, and then we upped my meds, and then I was feeling normal again and good. And so then we have 10 years on meds, on all different meds, and then I come to the point where I'm like, my kids are older, I don't want to be on this for life. And I had learned about the dependency of medication not being healthy, and read some about that, and so I was like, okay, maybe it's time to change this. So that's where I began tapering. And now, whenever I had learned about tapering from my doctor in the past, it was a 6-week, 2-month, something like that process. So I just did that, and I was like, now that, you know, my kids are older, and if I do get some depression or some symptoms, I'll be able to work through it. So it's probably a good time to just go off completely, because I was treating it kind of as like a crutch for not being depressed while I had young children, because I was afraid of being depressed while taking care of them, and then not being like getting dangerously depressed. I was afraid of. So then I did that 6-week taper, and I got very bad information about one of mine. I thought I didn't need to taper it, Wellbutrin. I don't know where, I cannot verify any of my sources. Somehow I thought I read somewhere it was fine to just stop that one. So I stopped Wellbutrin, cold turkey. And then the Fluoxetine I tapered over 6 weeks. And I felt very optimistic, because I was at a very good place in my life as far as my relationships, and felt, you know, just like I was ready to face even if it was an adjustment period. But I had no idea the incredible, like, mind-altering, life-bending reality I was headed for. I had no idea. It was like a living hell. I was completely in the dark that I was headed for that. So after those tapers, I wasn't surprised I had some depression symptoms and that I had some, negative symptoms and feelings and stuff. And I just was like, well, this is where my self-care comes in. This is where being intentional and just letting myself heal and work through this. And so I did that for maybe like 5 months. But I noticed it was getting darker and weirder and harder. But I'd also gone through some life changes. We had moved. And it was getting like dark. And I was starting to have really physical symptoms like chills, whole body chills and feelings of doom just like flood over me. And like into very intense anxiety and doom. And I was like, okay, this isn't good. Maybe I am one of those people who needs this for life. And I went right back to the doctor. And the doctor was like, yeah, of course. We're just going to get you right back on. And she reinstated me at 20 milligrams of Fluoxetine to take that day. So that very day, where it was starting to feel really bad and like hazardous, I took that pill, and there was 3 days I took the pill. It was like one evening, the next day, and then the next day. And that was a kindling. So it had been maybe 5 months. Let's see, September, October, November, December, January, February. Yeah, it had been 5 months and a couple of days. And I had taken that pill, taken it the next day, and then I could not get myself to stand up out of bed. I eventually did, but then I could hardly do anything. And I just felt like absolute psychological doom and disaster, and like I was being sentenced to hell. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt like extreme mental torture. I was having a lot of flashbacks, a lot of feelings of guilt and disaster and failure and doom and terrible anxiety, and I could not see my way out, and it was so extreme. I felt condemned, and so that was my kindling. And then I had the flu-like stuff, and I think I talked through my symptoms in my last video, so some of what those were. But I had very intense symptoms from that time, and then it was like a crawl from there to healing. So after those 3 days, a friend of mine actually, that morning that I couldn't get out of bed, messaged me. I feel like this is God. She was just messaged me, and she had gone off her meds in the past, and I had been like, oh, cool, that's great for you, I'm glad, and she was healthy and stuff. But she happened to message me that morning and asked me how I was doing, and I was just like, really, really bad. And she got on the phone with me and talked with me for 2 hours, and we hadn't been communicating a whole lot. We had different paths, but it was just that right when I needed it, in total sense of disaster. And she explained to me withdrawal, and she explained to me what my body was going through in withdrawal, and that she went through it. And I was floored. I was like, oh, I had no concept of what psychiatric drug withdrawal was, or kindling, or any of this. And so as she was talking to me, it's like I started to understand what was happening, and that I don't need this for life, but the medication itself makes you dependent. So then when you're trying to get off it, you really suffer. And I had not put that together, that it could be so much suffering for so long, and that's not like a recurrence of illness or something. And so I was like, wow. And so from that stage really began a more fuller understanding of the healing journey I was on. So then I started to do more reading, and I could barely do much, and I had those very extreme symptoms for a while. But I never, after those 3 days, took a pill again. And I am, since then, it's about, let's see, that was 15 months ago. So it's been like a crawl towards healing. And I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I'd say I'm a lot like better. And I know healing is coming to be even more full, because I've seen the progress, and I hear like the testimonies and stuff that you can get even more farther along in your healing. So that was so I had so I was on lots of different meds over 10 years, and I had multiple meds at the same time, and I had a cold turkey, and I had a fast taper, and then I reinstated very badly, and I had a kindling, and it was very extreme, and I was not able to do much, and I had a lot of horrible, horrible symptoms, and I am healing. So, if you're wondering, oh, I kindled, I can't heal, or oh, I tapered very badly, I can't heal, or I was on and off too many different meds, I can't heal, or whatever it is, you can heal, and I'm healing, and I'm now functioning pretty normally. I have anxiety, and it's higher than it was before, but I'm finding ways to manage it, and I'm able to do so much, and to live a normal daily life. And so my waves are getting smaller, and windows are getting long, and waves are getting to be less intense. So the healing process really does happen, and even if it's been a really bad medication journey, just take heart, because your body really is amazing and really can heal. And it is sad that this information isn't really well known and professional. There's not a lot of professional care and awareness around how to really help people get off medication. And there's a lot of deception around pharmaceuticals. And I think that's very unfortunate. That's costing so many people so much suffering. So my heart goes out to you, but also I want you to know that they don't have to get the best of you, and you can have your healing and get to the other side of this and enjoy life and have even purpose and meaning that comes through terrible suffering, that there can be real good that comes from it. And so that is the story, and I'd love if you just leave your comments and thoughts of whatever reactions or responses or thoughts you have to my video. Keep it kind. It's not easy to just get out there and share the scariest parts of your life, so keep it kind if you can. That would really mean a lot to me. And then also, just if you have specific things you want to talk about and ideas of what I can share with you from my healing process and what's helped me and what keeps me going, that would be great. I would love to be able to talk about what's helpful for you and what's interesting to you. So actually someone a lot of people were asking about my medication history, so I thought, you know what, that's the perfect one to talk about and to share. So if you have something that you'd like to hear more about, I am more than happy to share. So thanks so much for spending this time with me, and I'm just going to keep sharing and posting, and so you can follow, and you can also look on my website and sign up to hear more about when I have some hours to help. And I'm just happy to be able to help you guys out, and you are going to make it. All right, bye.